My brother drove recklessly, often drunk, crashed into a tree, and our parents covered it up, then demanded I pay $14,500. Hey Reddit, so my parents got my golden child brother a Tesla and then attempted to blame me after he crashed it. Buckle up, because this is going to be the most shocking family betrayal story you've read all week. So, since I was a child, I, 24 male, have had the worst luck in my family. My parents see my younger brother, Tristan, 21 male, as the golden child, capable of doing no wrong. The partiality in our household is so evident that it would make a sitcom writer blush. I'm not even exaggerating, this is straight up everybody loves Raymond material. Let me break it down for you. Since I turned 18, I've been required to pay a $400 monthly rent to live at home. Yes, you read that correctly. $400 to live in the same house where I grew up, in a bedroom that hasn't been changed since I was 12. Meanwhile, my brother lives fully rent-free, eating food I help pay for, using utilities I help cover, and overall acting as if he owns the entire home. When I finally had the courage to call out this obvious BS, my parents attacked me with the typical nonsense that parents employ when they realize they don't have a true explanation. The double standards do not end there. When I was in high school, I had to keep a 3.8 GPA while working weekends at a nearby hardware store. I was not permitted to attend parties since I needed to focus on my future. Tristan? This guy barely completed his classes, never worked during high school, and was permitted to party every weekend since he's just being social and needs to enjoy his youth. Every accomplishment of mine received a half-hearted compliment, whereas Tristan was commended for putting forth the bare minimum effort. I labored more than 40 hours each week at my soul-crushing corporate job only to save enough money to leave this hellhole. My objective has been to save enough for a quality apartment and the first and last month's rent, but every time I get near, some inexplicable family emergency arises. And guess who is supposed to help out? I graduated from college 3 years ago. I worked part-time while taking a full course load, graduated with honors, and found a job within 2 weeks of graduation. What is my reward for this achievement? A half-hearted congratulations text with a $50 Applebee's gift card. There is no party, celebration supper, or anything. Simply put, here's some mediocre chain restaurant cuisine, now keep paying your rent. Tristan finished this month with a strong 2.4 GPA following 6 years of what I guess was professional beer pong training. This guy changed his major 3 times, failed many classes that he had to repeat, and essentially treated college as an extended vacation with occasional paper writing assignments. And how did my folks celebrate his lousy achievement? They purchased him a Tesla Model 3 Performance. Not the standard model, but the $60,000 plus option with all the bells and whistles. Premium sound system, the works. I still recall the day they handed it to him. We were all gathered in the driveway, when my father handed Tristan this small box. Inside are the keys to the dazzling white Tesla sitting across the street. Tristan starts freaking out and dancing around like he's won the lotto, while my mother shoots around 500 photos for Facebook. My father looks at me, notices my expression, and says, "Don't be jealous. Your brother deserves this after working so hard." What exactly are you working hard at? Beer pong championships? When I mentioned that I graduated with honors in 4 years despite working and earning nothing, my mother had the gall to comment, "Well, college was easier for you. Tristan really struggled. He struggled to get out of bed before noon and remember who he was dating that week." I could go on for hours on the obvious partiality, but you get the point. My entire life, I've been treated as a second-class person within my own family. Tristan's entire personality was transformed the moment he received the Tesla. I am not even kidding. Dude couldn't go 5 minutes without discussing his whip or sharing Instagram stories from the dashboard. The car was no longer merely a mode of mobility for him. It had become his entire personality. Tesla Bro was born, and it was as annoying as it sounds. Every night, he would arrive home at 2 a.m., from whatever bar he was at and rev the engine in the driveway like a true tool. Yes, I understand that Teslas do not have engines to rev, but this dip would floor the acceleration back and forth in our driveway, producing that electric whirring noise at full blast. He'd wake up the entire neighborhood since, obviously, sleep is reserved for peasants who don't own the electric automobiles that Daddy purchased. The youngster drove like he was auditioning for Fast and Furious 27. Electric Baloo, driving down residential streets where children play, performing donuts in grocery store parking lots, and recording those TikTok videos where people pretend to sleep while their Tesla is on autopilot. Every time I suggested that treating public highways like his personal racetrack wasn't the best idea, he'd smirk and tell me to quit being such a buzzkill, bro. I even saw him drive intoxicated several times. This wasn't just being a douche, it was actively hazardous to those around him. I offered to be his designated driver several times or to call him an Uber, but he declined. The automobile basically drives itself, bro. Except that autopilot does not magically eliminate the effects of drinking on your judgment and reaction time. His friends fared no better. They would pack into the Tesla, usually 4 or 5 of them, all equally wasted, and go on a joyride. Their words, not mine. I warned them all several times that something horrible was about to happen. I also warned my parents. Everyone urged me to mind my own business. My mother genuinely said, and I'm quoting exactly here, "You're just jealous you don't have friends who want to have fun with you." Yes, Mom, I'm quite envious since I don't have buddies who wish to die in a catastrophic crash or kill innocent people. You caught me. With each passing day, Tristan became more reckless. The videos become more dangerous. The speeds increased. It wasn't a matter of whether something would happen, but when. Everyone, except me, appeared utterly unaware of what was about to happen. But then the inevitable occurred. On a Thursday night, I was in my room working when I heard my parents' door bang open at 3 a.m. There was frenzied talking in the hallway, followed by my father's car starting and rushing away. I found my mother downstairs, looking as if she had seen a ghost. When I asked what was going on, she murmured something about, "Your brother had a little accident with the Tesla, and that my father had gone to pick him up. A minor collision." That's family code for a catastrophic blunder that they're already plotting how to avoid. Around 4:30 a.m., I heard my father's car arrive into our driveway. I went to the front window and saw him almost pulling Tristan along the walkway. He could barely walk, was missing a shoe, and had what seemed to be dried blood on his forehead. My father was desperately shushing Tristan as he slurred, "Tree came out of nowhere, man." It turns out that Golden Boy wrapped his Tesla around a tree after leaving a bar. Isn't that shocking? Who could have expected this absolutely unpredictable incident, which I had been warning everyone about for weeks? By some miracle, he was not gravely injured, only a gash on his forehead and possibly some bruises from the airbag. However, the Tesla was nearly destroyed. Front end was smashed in. Airbags were deployed. The windshield cracked. The whole 9 yards. They escorted him to his room as if he were a baby who had stayed up past bedtime rather than a grown-ass man who had just committed a crime. I didn't get the complete story until the following morning. Tristan had been to the Rusty Nail. He got completely inebriated with his equally intelligent companions and then concluded that driving was an excellent idea. His friends, these stand-up citizens, appear to have encouraged this scheme, with one even video Tristan doing shots and then twirling his Tesla key, saying, "Let's see what this baby can really do." On his way home, he turned an extremely fast corner, lost control, jumped the curb, and plowed into a large oak tree owned by a poor homeowner. My father arrived ahead of the police. According to my mother's whispered phone call to my aunt, which I completely overheard, my father handled the situation with the homeowners. I have no idea what he promised them, but knowing my father, it was not cheap. He probably wrote them a check right away and forgot about it. The true mystery was how he persuaded them not to report the incident to the police. They had the Tesla towed to our garage, where it sat like a massive metal middle finger. The front end had entirely caved in. The hood collapsed like an accordion. Both airbags had deployed, leaving a strange powder residue across the interior. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks, and one of the front wheels was deformed at an angle that was clearly not factory standard. It was now a $60,000 paperweight. The garage door remained closed. 2 days after the accident, my parents arranged a family meeting in the living room. Throughout the history of family meetings, no one has ever been called to deliver good news. Nobody ever calls a family meeting and says, "Hey, we're all going to Disney World." So, I entered the living room. My parents were seated on the couch, making those serious faces you see when someone is ready to beg for a favor. Tristan slouched in the armchair, swiping through his phone as if the entire situation was a little inconvenience, diverting his attention away from his crucial TikTok perusing. The bruise on his face had turned a gorgeous shade of yellow-purple, which actually complemented his attractiveness. My father cleared his throat and looked at me with that fake serious expression he has when he's going to say something absolutely absurd but wants to appear logical and fair. He has a routine that includes straightening his back, clearing his throat, and clasping his hands together. It's like watching a nervous actress practice for a scene. "Son," he called out. "We've looked into the damage to Tristan's car." He said it as if Tesla had acquired a cold. "The insurance won't cover it because..." He trailed off, visibly uneasy. "Because he was driving drunk," I concluded for him. My mother gave me a look that could curdle milk. "Don't be dramatic. He'd only had a few drinks." Right. After a few beers, he was unable to walk straight or construct intelligible sentences when he returned home. In my mother's world, Anything less than being completely unconscious is considered a couple beers. My father continued as if I had not spoken. The point is, repairs are going to cost around $18,000, and we think it's only fair that we all chip in as a family. I actually laughed aloud, believing it was a joke. I then knew they were serious. They had the audacity, the ultimate brass balls, to ask me to assist pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he chose to drive drunk and smash it. I couldn't believe what I heard. You want me to help pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he decided to drive drunk? I asked again, just to be sure I wasn't having a stroke and hallucinating this conversation. We're a family, my mother remarked, as if that clarified everything. And you're the only one with significant savings right now. Ah. There it was. They knew I had been saving to move out, and they saw it as a handy way to compensate for their golden child's error. My savings were not for my future. It was simply an emergency fund for Christ's fuck-it-ups. I get it. How much are you expecting me to chip in? I said, using air quotes around chip in because we all knew that meant pay for the most of it. My father had the decency to appear slightly uncomfortable. Well, your mother and I can put in about $3,000 from our emergency fund. Tristan has about $500 saved up. LOL. Of course, Tristan only had $500 to his name, despite never having paid rent or expenses. That money was undoubtedly set aside for marijuana and whatever pricey streetwear brand he was into that month. So you want me to pay the other $14,500? I completed for him. It was not a question. My dad nodded, happy that I understood. We'll figure out a payment plan. Maybe $1,000 a month until it's paid off. We know you've been saving up. Tristan finally looked up from his phone and added, it's not like you need a fancy apartment anyway. You're always working. The chutzpah of this child could power a small city. He smashes his Tesla, the one I cautioned him not to drive drunk in, and then gives me financial advice on how I should spend my hard-earned money. I got money by working 2 jobs and paying rent to my own parents. That was when I lost it. I laughed again, but not in a good way. It was the kind of chuckle you have when something is so ridiculous that you can't be furious about it anymore. I'm not giving you a single cent for this, I stated, looking each of them in the eyes. Tristan crashed the car because he was driving drunk, and he should be grateful he's not sharing a cell with some guy named Bubba right now. This is his problem, not mine. My parents looked at me as if I had suggested sacrificing the family dog. After everything we've done for you, my mother began, her voice shaking in that manipulative tone she'd honed over the years. The Guilt Trip Express was departing the station. What have you done for me exactly? I was wondering. Made me pay rent while he lives free? Given him a Tesla while I drive a car that's older than his driver's license? Constantly dismissed my accomplishments while celebrating his mediocrity. Please, elaborate on all you've done for me that justifies me paying for his drunk driving accident. My father's face got that distinct shade of red that only comes when someone questions his authority. You will contribute to fixing your brother's car. End of discussion. I stood up, surprised at how peaceful I felt. No, I won't. End of my discussion. The expressions on their faces were priceless. They were so used to me giving in, to being the responsible one who makes sacrifices for the family, that they couldn't accept this new version of me who wasn't going to give up. You're being selfish, my mother said, pulling out the final weapon from her arsenal. No, I'm being realistic, I explained. Tristan chose to drive drunk. He chose to crash the car. That means he can deal with the consequences for once in his life. I walked out of the living room and back to my room, rejecting their request to return and discuss this like adults. The irony of their sudden desire for an adult talk was not lost on me. As I closed my bedroom door, I heard Tristan say, "So does this mean I'm not getting the car fixed?" That kid is always focused on his goals. I had no idea what they would do next, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. In my family, no is not considered a complete response. It's simply an opportunity to find more innovative ways to achieve what they desire. My parents scarcely spoke to me for the following few days, only asking whether I had reconsidered their gracious offer to let me pay for Tristan's error. I kept my responses short and to the point. No. This resulted in a lot of heavy sighs, slammed doors, and my mother engaging in passive-aggressive behavior by talking about me in the third person when I'm literally in the same room. Some people just don't understand family loyalty, she would say to no one in particular as I ate breakfast 3 feet away from her. You're really subtle, Mom. I saw them whispering a couple times while hunched around the kitchen table, papers strewn out. When I walked in, they would quiet down. This was never a positive indicator in my family. When people stop talking when you walk into a room, you can bet your ass they're talking about you, and not in a way that suggests they're arranging his surprise party. Friday night, I arrived home from work to find my father on the phone with an insurance company representative. He was speaking in his professional voice, which he uses to persuade others that he isn't a liar. I heard language like complete coverage and vandalism claims before he noticed me and took the call into his office. Vandalism claim? That was new. Drunk driving into a tree is not considered vandalism, unless the tree filed charges. I assumed they were grasping at straws, hoping to find some way to get the insurer to pay. Good luck with it. Insurance firms hire entire departments whose sole responsibility is to find reasons not to pay claims. But, whatever. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Saturday morning, setup. Saturday morning began with a boom, literally. I was jerked awake at 7 a.m. It sounded like someone was bashing the crap out of a metal trash can. I stumbled out of bed and looked out my window, which overlooked our driveway, but I saw nothing strange. The noise had stopped. I assumed it was just the garbage collectors being overly aggressive and went back to bed. Approximately 1 hour later, all hell broke loose. I awoke to shouts from the garage. I put on some sweatpants and headed downstairs to see Tristan standing in the open garage, my parents behind him. All three were staring at the Tesla. The car was significantly more damaged than before. And I don't mean a bit more damaged, it appeared that the Hulk had a particular vendetta against it. The windshield had entirely smashed. All of the windows were broken. There were significant damages in the doors and hood. The side mirrors were dangling from cables. One of the headlights had just disappeared. Everything was almost impressive how completely ruined everything was. What the hell happened? I questioned, completely perplexed. Sure, the automobile was messed up from the incident, but this was on another level. Tristan whirled around, his face flushed with apparent wrath. Like you don't know? You did this? I actually laughed. I was asleep all night. I didn't touch your car. My father held up something, a baseball bat. My baseball bat. From my high school days. The one I kept in my closet as a reminder of when I played. Then why was this in the bushes outside? My father inquired, his voice doing that phony calm thing that indicates he's actually quite upset. I responded I had no idea, but my mother cut me off. Don't lie to us. It was my bat, which I had possessed for years. But I hadn't touched it for months. It sat in the back of my closet, alongside other high school sports gear I never utilized. We've already called the insurance company, my father said smugly. They're sending an investigator on Monday. We told them someone vandalized the car out of jealousy. That's when something clicked. Tristan must have stolen my bat and further damaged his already damaged Tesla. He then placed the bat to frame me. The insurance wouldn't cover the drunk driving accident. What about vandalism? This might be covered. Bonus points for exacting retribution on Big Bro, who refused to pay for his error. Now it made sense. I looked at Tristan and noticed the small smile he was trying so hard to disguise. This wasn't simply him being a spoiled brat. This was true malice. He purposely set me up. And my parents were in on it. You're seriously going to frame me for this? I questioned, gazing directly at Tristan. He smirked. Who do you think they'll believe? He was asking. The straight-A student with a bright future or the jealous older brother who still lives at home and complains about everything? My parents stood behind him, their arms crossed. A united front, against me. They had already chosen their side, as they always did. It didn't matter that they were committing insurance fraud, which is a criminal. It didn't matter that they were willing to blame me for something I hadn't done. All that mattered was to preserve their golden child. This is bullshit, and you know it, I remarked, surprisingly cool given the situation. I didn't touch the car. I was asleep all night. My mother scoffed. We heard you leave your room around 2 a.m. The neighbor's security camera probably caught you too. That was intriguing. We didn't have any neighbors with security cameras, at least not ones that could capture our driveway or garage. They were lying. That meant they knew exactly what had transpired. Because they helped plan it. Or, at the absolute least, they knew Tristan had done it and were covering for him. So let me get this straight, I responded, crossing my arms. You want me to either pay $14,500 for repairs to a car I don't own, or you'll frame me for vandalizing it to commit insurance fraud? Those are my options? My father's face reddened. Nobody's framing anyone. We know you did this because you're angry about the money. I returned to my room without saying another thing. There was no point in arguing with them. They had already determined their interpretation of reality. I closed the door, sat on my bed, and tried to think. This quickly went from ordinary familial bias to outright criminal activity. I grabbed my phone and called my supervisor, requesting an emergency day off for Monday. I was not going to leave my defense in the hands of my family when the insurance investigator showed there. I needed to be there to explain my side of the story. As I hung up, I realized something that made my stomach sink. My parents had just shown me how far they would go to protect Tristan. They would frame their son. They would lie to the authorities. Which made me wonder, what had they covered up for him in the past that I had no idea about? Monday. The insurance investigator arrives. The insurance investigator arrived on Monday morning at precisely 9 a.m. His name was Mac. I've seen this sort before. He had a wrinkled button-down tucked into khakis and was carrying a tablet and a camera. My father tried to convince me to go to work and they would handle everything, but I just stared at him until he gave up. It's funny how quickly his power dissolved when I didn't immediately roll over. My parents did their best June and Ward Cleaver impressions when Mac came. Tristan slouched nearby, appearing victimized, and periodically caressing the mark on his face for dramatic effect. Mac was courteous, but all business? He walked immediately to the garage to study the Tesla, snapping dozens of shots from all angles. He spent a long time comparing the front-end damage to the new damage, which made me think he would realize the obvious. This automobile had been involved in two quite distinct accidents. After inspecting the vehicle, Mac requested to meet with each of us individually. My parents went first, together. They stayed there for around 30 minutes. Then Tristan walked in for his interview, which lasted approximately 15 minutes. I heard him raise his voice at one point, most likely for dramatic effect. When it was my turn, I sat across from Mac at our kitchen table, where he had already set up his laptop and some documents. He glanced at me and said he had some concerns concerning where I was on Friday night and early Saturday morning. I told him the truth. I was sleeping in my bed at home. I got home from work at 6 p.m., cooked a sandwich, played Xbox, and went to bed around 11 p.m. I didn't leave my room until I heard a disturbance in the garage the following morning. Mac nodded, taking notes. Then he asked me directly if I was responsible for the Tesla's damage. No, I replied, staring him directly in the eye. And here's what you need to know that they probably didn't tell you. That car was already significantly damaged before this so-called vandalism happened. He raised his eyebrows, displaying the most passion he'd shown thus far. I described everything. Tristan received the Tesla as a gift after his lackluster graduation. He had been driving dangerously since he received it. I told Mac about the drunken driving, speeding, and TikTok videos. Then I came to the crash. How Tristan had wrapped it around a tree while driving drunk about a week before, and how my parents had managed to evade arrest. Check the airbags, I informed him. They've already been deployed from the first crash. Take a look at the front-end damage and the new damage. They are plainly different. The front-end damage is the result of an impact with a tree. The rest is not from me. I also informed him about my parents' attempt to get me to pay $14,500 for repairs, and how the vandalism occurred unexpectedly shortly after I declined. Mac wrote everything down without much reaction. Then he questioned whether anyone could confirm that I was in my room all night. No, I explained. I live with my parents and Tristan. However, I did order a pizza around 9:30 p.m. On Friday, I spent approximately 11 hours playing Xbox Live with pals. They can certify that I was online. He nodded and took additional notes. Then he startled me by asking if any of my neighbors had security cameras. Not that would cover our garage or driveway, I replied. The Johnsons across the street have a doorbell camera, but it only sees their porch. He wrote something down, thanked me, and promised to contact the family soon. As we walked back into the living room, I could feel my parents and Tristan staring at me. They realized I hadn't followed their script. After Mac left, all hell broke loose. After Mac left, all hell broke loose. My folks have lost their collective brains. How dare I reveal the truth to the investigator? The horror. My mother cried because I was attempting to ruin Tristan's life over a single mistake, as if drunk driving and insurance fraud were on par with forgetting to take out the garbage. My father got in my face, pointing his finger, and told me I should call the investigator back and rectify this if I knew what was best for me. Tristan just smirked from the couch, knowing that his plan would succeed. Because it always has. The golden child always wins, right? I returned to my room and locked the door, disregarding their requests to return downstairs. For the next 2 days, I went to work, returned home, went directly to my room, and closed the door. I ordered delivery meals and only came out once I realized they were asleep. It was like living in a hostile foreign country where I didn't understand the language and everyone despised me. Wednesday. A text from Mac. On Wednesday afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Mac with State Farm Insurance. Please meet me on Main Street at 4 p.m. today. I have a few follow-up questions." I replied back to say I'd be there. I did not notify my family where I was going. I left work and headed straight to Starbucks. Mac was already present, seated at a corner table with his laptop and stack of papers. He motioned me to sit down. "I wanted to talk to you away from your family," he continued with a low voice. "We've uncovered some inconsistencies in the claim." Mac turned out to be more thorough than my family had anticipated. He'd scoured the neighborhood for security footage and discovered anything. Last month, the neighbors 2 doors down installed a new security system featuring a wide-angle camera that covered the majority of the street. And guess what it caught? At 2:13 a.m. on Saturday morning, Tristan took my baseball bat from my car's trunk, where I kept sports equipment, and drove off in his already damaged Tesla. The video saw him carefully breaking every window, denting the hood and doors, and even pulling off one of the side mirrors. Max slid his tablet across the table, showing me the footage. There was my brother. At 2 a.m., staging the entire thing. It was so apparent and humorous. "I've been doing this job for 15 years, Mac blurted out. "And this is one of the dumbest frame jobs I've ever seen." He then informed me that he had previously reported the facts to his superiors at the insurance firm. They denied the claim and referred the case to their fraud department. He had also contacted the local police, who wanted to talk with both me and Tristan. "The police officer will be here in about 10 minutes, Mac continued. "And I wanted to let you know before they contact your family. Given the circumstances, I thought you might like to speak with them separately." I really thanked him for his thoroughness and belief in me. The police get involved. A police officer arrived. She was a woman. She took my statement, showed me the footage again, and asked if I wanted to file charges against Tristan for attempting to frame me. "The DA will decide whether to pursue the insurance fraud charges," she replied. "But for the false reporting and the attempt to frame you, that's your call." I sat there, contemplating. Yes, Tristan is my brother, flesh and blood. But he was also the one who purposefully attempted to frame me for a crime I did not commit. The person who would have gladly let me take the blame for his drunk driving and subsequent tantrum, potentially destroying my record, employment prospects, and life. I considered all the years of favoring. All those double standards. All the times I was made to feel inferior because I was not Tristan. I reflected on how they were willing to let me take the blame for insurance fraud to protect him. And then I realized how tired I was of it all. "Yes," I informed the police. "I want to press charges." Without hesitation. Only a simple yes. She nodded, took some notes, and invited me to the station later to provide a formal statement. We decided on 6 p.m. that evening. Coming home to chaos. I drove home, getting into our driveway around 5 p.m. to grab a few items before heading to the police station. To my amazement, a police cruiser was already parked in front. Officer Rivera seems to have made good use of his time. Walking into my residence at that time was like walking into a battle zone. My mother was pacing and crying in the living room. Dad was on the phone with someone, hurriedly discussing misunderstandings and family issues. Tristan sat on the couch, looking pallid. He usually had a perpetual smug grin, like the cat who ate the canary and successfully blamed it on the dog. When my mother noticed me, she ran over. "What did you do?" "The cops were just here. They think Tristan might be charged with fraud." I did not do anything. Tristan committed this to himself when he decided to blame me for vandalizing his car. My father hung off the phone and stormed over. "This is ridiculous. We can deal with this as a family. You should contact them back right now and tell them you don't want to press charges." "No," I simply replied. "I'm done covering for him. I'm done being the fall guy. None of you can make me drop the charges right now." The aftermath? A full-fledged meltdown. The fallout was exactly what you would expect. My mother alternated between sobbing and attempting to guilt me into withdrawing the allegations. My father alternated between frightening me and providing money. Suddenly, he could assist me with the rent for a new apartment, if I only made this disappear. Tristan tried to apologize, but it came off as "sorry I got caught," rather than "sorry I'm a scheming asshole." At 5:45, I walked upstairs. I knew I didn't want to return to this place after delivering my statement, so I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, and some critical documents. When I returned downstairs with my bag, my folks looked frightened. "Where do you think you are going?" my father demanded. "I'm going to the police station to provide a statement. And then I'll stay with a pal for a time." My mother started wailing loudly. "You cannot leave. We need to deal with this as a family. We stopped being a functional family a long time ago, I responded. Maybe we never were. My father moved in front of the door, barring my exit. If you step out that door and do this, don't bother coming back. You will no longer be welcome in this home. If you do this to your brother, you are choosing to destroy this family. I stared him directly in the eyes. No, father, I am not destroying the family. I refuse to let the family destroy me anymore. And if you are truly willing to abandon me because I did not allow it to happen, I am fine with it. I stepped around him and exited the door. He called after me, something about ungrateful children and family loyalty, but I didn't turn back. I got into my car and proceeded to the police station. The formal statement giving my formal declaration took around 1 hour. The officer outlined what would come next. Tristan would be charged with filing a fraudulent police report, attempting insurance fraud, and possibly other offenses relating to the original DUI crash, which had never been properly recorded. This can become messy, she cautioned me. Family cases frequently do. Are you certain you want to proceed? I nodded. I'm sure. When I left the police station, I received a text from my pal Chris. Have your room ready. I ordered food. Don't be late, brother. I had called him earlier to inquire if I could stay at his apartment for a few days. And being the reliable friend he is, he did not even ask questions. As I drove to Chris's apartment, my phone flooded with texts and phone calls from my relatives. I turned off my phone and continued driving. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt as if I was actually standing up for myself. Chris was waiting on his porch as I pulled up, holding 2 sodas. He didn't immediately ask for more information. He simply assisted me with my stuff and said, "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." And in that moment, I discovered something significant. This was how real families were meant to feel. Not obligated, not manipulation, not a perpetual competition. Only unconditional support. The kind I had never seen at home. Edit 1. Holy crap, this exploded up overnight. Thank you for the accolades and support, Reddit, it means a lot. Edit 2. Stay tuned for an update, which will be available soon. LOL, that rhymed. Update, hey Reddit, it's been a while since my previous post, and many of you have DM'd me asking for an update on the Tesla bro problem. So, here goes. I left my parents' place 6 months ago with a duffel bag and a newfound backbone. Best decision I've ever made. I crashed with Chris for a few weeks before finding my own house. Nothing spectacular, just a 1-bedroom apartment where no one begs me to solve their problems. Tristan's case progressed fast. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, blood alcohol levels from the hospital the night of the incident, which my parents attempted to conceal, and an insurance inquiry report. He ended up pleading guilty to all charges and received 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, a huge fine. He lost his license for 5 years. My parents were not charged, but they did face significant fines for their involvement in the insurance scam. They're essentially broke after paying legal expenses, fines, and the remaining payments on a totaled Tesla. As for me, I received a promotion at work. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not always dealing with family issues. In addition, I'm taking night school to pursue an MBA. Life is currently fairly good. The update you've been waiting for: text messages and phone calls resumed last month. First, from my mother. Then my father. Finally, Tristan used his jail-approved phone time. They all had the same message, only delivered in various ways. They need money. Mom took the standard guilt tactic. We're about to lose our house. After everything we've done for you, how can you abandon us now? Dad attempted his typical intimidation. You owe this family. Man up and help us out. Tristan apologized and stated that his time in jail has changed his perspective. Before requesting for commissary funds. Do you know what was very funny? Last week, my folks arrived at my apartment. Unannounced. I have no idea how they got my address, probably through a mutual family connection. They were standing outside my door, looking really pitiful. Both of them had a frantic face. They had an entire pitch planned. They were selling the house but needed funds to move. The bank accounts were frozen. Dad lost his job following the controversy. Mom's anxiousness was flaring up. Couldn't I please assist my family in their time of need? I listened to everything without interrupting. I saw them spin their sob story with a dramatic performance. When they were finished, I just gazed at them for about 10 seconds before asking, "Sorry, I must have missed something during your brief presentation. Could you please remind me which part of attempting to frame me entitled you to my financial assistance?" Mom's face collapsed, like if she had been smacked. Dad stood there speechless. For the first time in their lives, they had no script ready. The roles were flipped, and they had no idea how to play someone who were out of control. But they weren't in their house, where they set the rules. They were at my door. And I had all the cards. I said I'd think about it and close the door. I thought about it. For around 5 seconds. Then I sent this text. The answer is no. Do not contact me again. Dad responded with threats. Mom uses emotional manipulation. Tristan made pledges to change. I blocked all of their numbers. Some people may believe that is harsh. Perhaps it is. But after 24 years being the scapegoat, I'm finally putting myself first. They're adults who've made their decisions. Just as I am making mine right now. So that's all for now, Redditors. Thank you for sticking around during this whole mess. You guys are the finest. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. So, guys, peace out for now. Edit 1. For those thinking of bringing charges against my parents. The DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to indicate they were aware of Tristan's plan beforehand. Personally, I believe they knew. But, whatever. The financial ramifications they are currently facing are most likely harsher than what the courts would have done anyhow. Edit 2. To the few people who messaged me stating, "But they're still your family." Oh, come on. Being connected by blood does not give somebody the authority to frame you for a felony. That is not how family works. That's how prison gangs operate. LOL, that rhymed. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my previous post, and many of you have DM'd me asking for an update on the Tesla bro problem. So, here goes. I left my parents' place 6 months ago with a duffel bag and a newfound backbone. Best decision I've ever made. I crashed with Chris for a few weeks before finding my own house. Nothing spectacular, just a one-bedroom apartment where no one begs me to solve their problems. Tristan's case progressed fast. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, blood alcohol levels from the hospital the night of the incident, which my parents attempted to conceal, and an insurance inquiry report. He ended up pleading guilty to all charges and received 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, a huge fine. He lost his license for 5 years. My parents were not charged, but they did face significant fines for their involvement in the insurance scam. They're essentially broke after paying legal expenses, fines, and the remaining payments on a totaled Tesla. As for me, I received a promotion at work. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not always dealing with family issues. In addition, I'm taking night school to pursue an MBA. Life is currently fairly good. The update you've been waiting for: text messages and phone calls resumed last month. First, from my mother. Then my father. Finally, Tristan used his jail-approved phone time. They all had the same message, only delivered in various ways. They need money. Mom took the standard guilt tactic. We're about to lose our house. After everything we've done for you, how can you abandon us now? Dad attempted his typical intimidation. You owe this family. Man up and help us out. Tristan apologized and stated that his time in jail has changed his perspective. Before requesting for commissary funds. Do you know what was very funny? Last week, my folks arrived at my apartment. Unannounced. I have no idea how they got my address, probably through a mutual family connection. They were standing outside my door, looking really pitiful. Both of them had a frantic face. They had an entire pitch planned. They were selling the house but needed funds to move. The bank accounts were frozen. Dad lost his job following the controversy. Mom's anxiousness was flaring up. Couldn't I please assist my family in their time of need? I listened to everything without interrupting. I saw them spin their sob story with a dramatic performance. When they were finished, I just gazed at them for about 10 seconds before asking, "Sorry, I must have missed something during your brief presentation. Could you please remind me which part of attempting to frame me entitled you to my financial assistance?" Mom's face collapsed, like if she had been smacked. Dad stood there speechless. For the first time in their lives, they had no script ready. The roles were flipped, and they had no idea how to play someone who were out of control. But they weren't in their house, where they set the rules. They were at my door. And I had all the cards. I said I'd think about it and close the door. I thought about it. For around 5 seconds. Then I sent this text. The answer is no. Do not contact me again. Dad responded with threats. Mom uses emotional manipulation. Tristan made pledges to change. I blocked all of their numbers. Some people may believe that is harsh. Perhaps it is. But after 24 years being the scapegoat, I'm finally putting myself first. They're adults who've made their decisions. Just as I am making mine right now. So that's all for now, Redditors. Thank you for sticking around during this whole mess. You guys are the finest. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. So, guys, peace out for now. Edit 1. For those thinking of bringing charges against my parents, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to indicate they were aware of Tristan's plan beforehand. Personally, I believe they knew. But, whatever. The financial ramifications they are currently facing are most likely harsher than what the courts would have done anyhow. Edit 2. To the few people who messaged me stating, "But they're still your family." Oh, come on. Being connected by blood does not give somebody the authority to frame you for a felony. That is not how family works. That's how prison gangs operate.